Ramen alternatives. Hey there, welcome to Hiking for Health CA. This time, another 5 on food. We are going to quickly talk about ramen alternatives. Because I've already talked about ramen, right? Right. But for some people, and sometimes I have noticed during the unfortunate pandemic, I know that keeps coming up, but it's kind of a thing in 2020. Uh, at least for a little while, the grocery store I went to was out. There was no ramen. People panic buyed and went freaking crazy, and I don't know what they're doing with all that ramen now. Because as it turned out, they didn't need to panic buy. There was other food. There wasn't a complete food shortage. At least not in my area. In my area, maybe other areas they had issues. In my area, we didn't just run out of food and had to resort to just eating bricks of ramen and things like that. But yeah, people panic buyed and the shelves were empty. There was no ramen. But there was a lot of other alternates that I guess people didn't think of, but they were right there on the shelves in some cases near the ramen, and nobody touched them. And we're going to talk about that. These alternatives to ramen. Now, the big thing that I talked about when I did the ramen thing is ramen is cheap. It's very inexpensive. I mean, you can get a whole freaking package of it for very little money. It comes down to something like, what, 20-something cents, if that, per little thing of ramen. So some of these can be a little more pricey, and that is a drawback to that. But the upswing of it is it helps you put a little variety. I mean, yes, you're still eating dehydrated noodles that you reconstitute with water, either cold water or hot water, depending on if you're cold soaking or not, all that kind of thing. But some of them will come in some better flavors, different flavors, and things than you can get in the ramen. In some areas, like I know the store that I go to normally, they've got a pretty good variety of different types of ramen. Some stores, they only carry like one or two different flavors and things like that. So again, not sponsored by any brands and stuff. I'm just giving examples of the kinds of things. Is any kind of a cup of noodles. This particular one is good. This one is an actual Vietnamese pho type of thing. So again, you're getting that variety. There's a little different there. It's kind of the same as ramen. I know this looks kind of unwieldy, right? Oh, I gotta pack that. No, just like ramen, this is very repackable. I open it up, I pour it into a bag, seal that bag, and it's ready to go for backpacking. I can put it in my backpack. You can also buy things like entire huge bags. This is pancit, which is basically still a dehydrated noodle, slightly different type of noodle, but it still works for rehydrating in hot or cold water. So I can just okay, whatever I want from this, I take a certain amount of it, put it in a bag. What kind of flavor do I want with that? I have my own options of different types of things that I can make my own flavorings, add water, set it up. There are all kinds of that. There's cup of soup. There are alternatives out there to ramen that work the exact same way. And like I say, one of the few drawbacks, they help add variety to your meals. They're out there available sometimes when ramen isn't available, because everybody thinks of that and grabs it off the shelf and things like that. And one of the few drawbacks to it is it's not always as cheap as ramen. Like something like this is not going to be 25 cents like a package of ramen. But this may actually give me a little bit more than regular ramen does. And again, it can always come in flavors that ramen doesn't come in, and things like that. But it is still just as versatile. You can use the flavoring if you want. You can bypass the flavoring and make your own and just use the noodles. And that's some of the thing too. Sometimes the noodles will be a little bit different. So a little variety in your diet. If you're doing especially a long distance backpack, it's nice to not have to eat the same thing over and over. So alternatives to ramen are out there. They're very similar. It's not just the fact that they're just a different company, but I mean they are a different kind of setup. You can use it for backpacking. Keep that in mind. That's 5 on food. I think I actually kept this to close to 5 minutes this time. That's 5 on food, and I'll see you next time.